Assalamualaikum everybody. Can you hear me now? ठीक है जी. I'm very sorry about that. First, the traffic at Karsal and then technology trouble. But if I were to get started with the fourth quarter and full year results analyst briefing for Ingo Polymers and Chemicals, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So in terms of the key highlights of the business, revenue 26 billion, 7% down from the year before. Profitability negative 161 million, 102% down from the year before. Exports were lower, and so was the rest of our financial highlights. But let's talk about the key drivers which bring us to this the results the 2024 results. In terms of key drivers, you're all aware that the few major drivers of our business are core delta, which is driven by international PVC prices and ethylene prices. So on the left of the screen, you can see a graph which shows that international PVC prices over the last couple of years have witnessed a downward trend by and large, and mostly, especially in the second half of the year, from June 2024 onwards, we are seeing record low PVC prices, around $800 per ton. So it's dropped from around $1,000 to $800 per ton, and primarily on the back of normalization of freight rates and supply chain constraints. So global operating rates have decreased on this basis at 77% to 76%. And as PVC prices have dropped, and core delta has also dropped, so it's not like ethylene prices have dropped at the same level. It's primarily been ethylene prices have remained stable, even if they were on a declining trend. And we have seen core deltas of around 300, hovering around $300 per ton. Why was the PVC prices low? So the market was dull primarily on the back of oversupply, weak demand, rising feedstock prices, new plants start up in US, China, Thailand, and Qatar. So with interest rates high, mortgage demand was low, construction took a hit in China and in the US. And both of these are demand centers for the construction sector and the PVC industry specifically. So with demand down in both of these sectors, supply rose as new plants came online. And what we saw was that, the geopolitical and macroeconomic variables also hampered the growth of PVC demand, resulting in reduction in prices along with margins. So currently, PVC prices are at around $760 per ton. Also, during this year, ethylene prices were on a declining trend because on the back of downstream demand being slower, crude oil prices decreased. However, the pressure on core delta was $330 per ton. On average, I'd say around $300 per ton is where we saw 2024 core delta. Ethylene prices declined from a high of $1,000 per ton in August, but before that also they were pretty stable to $935 per ton in December. Reduction in interest rates should boost regional real estate activity, and we expect a gradual recovery in construction activity. The third major driver of our business is power cost, and power cost for us is primarily driven by gas cost. On the left, you can see a graph that which shows that your industrial gas price has gone up over the last year from around 2,000 rupees per MMBTU to almost 3,000 rupees per MMBTU in this last year. And over the last 2-3 months, there's been a lot of talk in the news about the threat of shifting captive power plants to the grid. And this has pivoted in the last month to a gas price hike. The government notified gas prices of 3,500 rupees per MMBTU effective February 1st, 2025, with an additional levy of 5% up to June and 10% July onwards. So with the depletion of indigenous gas reserves, what we're expecting is that gas at competitive rates will remain a challenge. And what we're looking at is evaluating various alternative power options, while also looking at engaging with the relevant ministries in Islamabad and otherwise to drive positive conclusions on gas availability. All options are on the table and we're exploring all of those. In terms of business updates, so revenue 20% chloralkali, 80% for PVC. This is a difference from the year before. In 2023, we had revenue of around 14% from the chloralkali business and 86% from PVC. But the way our business is structured, the chloralkali business performs a base on which the PVC business is able to create exponential returns in the good years, and in years when the global commodity cycle has a slowdown, the base business performance drives results. So if you look at the PAT position, the chlor-alkali business remained stable from 2.9 billion in 2023 segment-wise profitability to around 2.7 billion. And this delta primarily is due to increased gas prices. So higher gas prices, as you know, largely it affects the caustic business disproportionately because of the electrolysis units. And on the other side, we have the PVC business, which has taken a hit with lower prices and lower core deltas. If I were to look at production, production was lower in 2023 for PVC, slightly low for caustic also, and VCM was also lower compared to the year before. And primarily, this is because we have preponed um, our January outage in September last year. You will recall we had given a notice in the exchange also to, take care of certain activities at the plant. If I were to talk about business updates for PVC, what you will see in the graph on the left, it's been a tough year, yes, but you will see that we have steadily increased sales performance over the quarters. So where we started at a 45 KT sales in 2024, we went all the way up to 60 KT in the fourth quarter. And despite the reduction in GDP growth over in 2024, we have seen that the PVC market domestically has actually grown by 8%. And this is on the back of market development efforts by the company and imports from Indonesia and China at significantly low prices. Compared to this growth of 8% in the PVC market, the cement industry has actually declined by 8% year on year with muted construction activity. So what we are seeing is that the domestic industry downstream is growing, flooring, pipes, window profiles in PVC, or the industry is growing. We've seen around, I think, a 20-25% increase growth in these domestic PVC products. Despite the headwinds, we were able to support the market by ensuring product availability, and we implemented various incentives to boost market confidence. And as you can see, the gradual increase in sale volumes over the quarters also indicates that the pricing strategies, targeted incentive programs by our commercial team ensured the sustained market share with growth in sales in the local market. In terms of where our product largely goes, so pipes and fittings, 53%. So primarily in the construction sector, whether it's window profiles, cable compounds, films and sheets, etc. The chlor-alkali business, towards the end of the fourth quarter, prices increased in the international market due to an increase in demand, and export supply in the first half of November was pretty strong. Domestically, the market remains balanced between Sitara, Etihad, Polymers, Ingropolymer, and Nimar, and prices remain stable domestically and internationally. We continue to maintain a presence in exports, and although increasing gas costs have adversely affected our margins, and our supply to domestic export-oriented units remains at 80%. If I were to talk about the consolidated performance in 2024 versus 23, so I've already mentioned that revenue was down 7% on the back of lower prices, and this was partially offset by higher sales volumes over the quarters. But as you can see in the bars, the revenue, even with higher volumes, remained muted. EBITDA, much bigger decrease, and primarily this is on the back of the lower core delta and higher gas prices. Going on to PAT, lower all of this comes back to the PAT. Lower international prices, higher energy costs, higher raw material costs, lower core delta, and all of those resulted in higher short-term borrowings. I believe we went from around 7.5, 8 billion RF in 2023 to around 11 billion in 2024. And these macroeconomic headwinds have all impacted our profitability in the last year. Do we see ourselves going forward? So as you saw over the quarters, volumes have grown, profitability has gotten better, interest rates have come down, and the construction sector is picking up. Globally also the macroeconomic indicators are going down. So with a decrease in interest rates globally, we expect pickup in the US and in China in the construction sector, which should fuel PVC demand and also bring prices up. If I were to look at where we see the key areas of our business, so in terms of the projects, we are progressing well on the HPO and HTDC projects, and we're expecting commencement in the first quarter. If I were to talk about safety, it remains our key focus on ensuring safe and sustainable operations, and we are making substantial progress on process safety transformations. Our drive for safety excellence continues unabated. In terms of PVC, the weak global demand, it'll keep international PVC prices bearish, but the narrow producer margins will also limit further price cuts. So at a certain point, I've talked about it, I believe, in the last analyst briefing also, but at a certain point of prices, it makes more sense for the global players to cut operating rates rather than reduce prices. And we are pretty much at that cusp, which is shown by the fact that operating rates globally around 70 to 75%. Domestically, however, demand is expected to recover, and this we've seen in the fourth quarter of 2024 also. Specifically, although during the whole year, market has grown by 8%. And this is with an expected increase in PSDP spend, definitely lower interest rates and market development efforts, which our team is also doing a lot of. In fact, most of it comes from our market development team. In terms of ethylene prices, they're expected to remain range bound on the back of crude oil prices and new capacity additions also. So for caustic, the chloralkali market locally is primarily influenced by energy prices, and affordable energy will remain a key driver and a challenge for the chloralkali industry. But in terms of the domestic demand outlook, it's positive. It's determined by factors such as the recovery in the large-scale manufacturing sector and, the government's increased focus on textile exports. Finally, in terms of the hydrogen peroxide project, we're expecting commissioning in the first quarter this year, and we're also gearing up to launch the product in the domestic market. We're engaging with customers and preparing to implement our commercial strategy. On that note, I will open the floor for questions. You are also very welcome to ask questions on the sidebar, and we can take them on. So I think Heather Folio.
Yeah, could you hear me?
If someone can unmute him.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Heather, I can't hear you actually.
Can you hear me now? Somebody can hear me?
Heather?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? आवाज आ रही है मेरी?
एक सेकेंड
ये यहाँ से ठीक है साइड से
जी एक्चुअली सॉरी हैदर साहब ये यहाँ पे ही मसला है
अच्छा अच्छा
ऑन आवर एंड जी आपका
Now you
सवाल
can
आई कैन
hear
हियर
me? Yeah.
जी
I have already put on the chat box. Number one question. Is there any plans or plans about the diversification or vertical integration due to the cycles we are seeing from past 3 quarters? So अगर आपके पास कोई प्लान है डाइवर्सिफिकेशन का या फिर वर्टिकल इंटीग्रेशन का, ये मेरा पहला सवाल है.
So Heather Saab, in terms of diversification, yeah, vertical integration, So inshallah, when the HPO project comes online, it should diversify our base. It's part of the chloralkali sector, but the fundamentals are different from the PVC sector. It focuses more on the export and textile sector rather than construction. So diversification, inshallah, we are expecting to come in from the HPO business.
अच्छा
Vertical integration, not as of right now. Vertical integration में हमारे पास या तो downstream पे हम कुछ करेंगे PVC
जी
में.
जी
Backward, there's not much scope at this point for us. Ethylene का क्रैकर तो लगने की अभी कोई स्पेस नहीं है.
थर्ड क्वेश्चन डिटेल्स अबाउट मेजर्स लीड्स टू ग्रो डोमेस्टिक ग्रोथ
जी.
डोमेस्टिक ग्रोथ जो डोमेस्टिक जो ग्रोथ हुई है रेवेन्यू में ना तो उसका जो मेजरमेंट्स है उसका जरा डिटेल्स बता दीजिएगा
सो डोमेस्टिक ग्रोथ जो हम देखते हैं ना, वो हम कह रहे हैं कि मार्केट में डोमेस्टिकली मार्केट्स जो पाकिस्तान की है उसमें इंपोर्ट काफ़ी आई है. So while
जी
Engro Polymer has also our own growth, sales has been from 199 KT the year before to around 206 KT this year. But the market में import भी काफी 30-40 हजार टन की आई है, and that is where we measure domestic growth 8%. So दोनों को मिला के broadly that's where our number of 8% comes from.
अच्छा
ठीक.
अच्छा इसमें एक और क्वेश्चन है कि जो ट्रेडिशनली जो पीवीसी रेजिन्स की जो हमारे पास रॉ मटेरियल्स है ना उसमें फ्लक्चुएशन बहुत आती है जैसे एथिलीन हो गया और नेचुरल गैस तो हम देख रहे हैं कि गैस के भी इश्यूज बहुत ज़्यादा है जिसकी वजह से ग्रॉस प्रॉफिट पे बहुत ज़्यादा इफेक्ट पड़ रहा है तो आपके पास कोई कैपेक्स है आरएनडी पे या फिर अल्टरनेटिव पे जैसे अभी कुछ रिसर्च चल रहे हैं बायो टेक्नोलॉजी पे बायोमास बेस्ड फीड स्टॉक्स पे इस तरह कोल बेस पे भी कुछ रिसर्च चल रही है तो क्या कंपनी इस हवाले से कुछ काम कर रहे हैं कैपेक्स वगैरह आरएनडी से रिलेटेड
तो अगर मैं पावर की बात करूं हैदर साहब, तो हम काफ़ी सारी चीज़ें देख रहे हैं इन टर्म्स ऑफ पावर और पावर सप्लाई नीड्स. इसमें हम कोल भी एक्सप्लोर कर रहे हैं. हमने रिन्यूएबल आरडीएफ बायोमास सब एक्सप्लोर किया है. एंग्रो पॉलीमर की एक मसला मसला तो मैं नहीं कहूँगी, खासियत ये है कि वी आर अ प्रोसेस प्लांट विच मीन्स कि हम जो है we need a certain reliability of operation. Engropolymer is not the kind of plant जहाँ पे हम बिजली ट्रिप हुई तो सही है, वल्ला अलम चलता रहेगा. अगर हमारा प्लांट ट्रिप होता है उसको ऑनलाइन वापस लाने में 5 से 7 दिन लग जाते हैं. इसीलिए reliability of power supply is very important for us. That is why we are exploring many different options. लेकिन gas based power या coal fired plants at a certain level will become feasible for us if gas prices, at these gas prices with the levies proposed will not make sense. Actually, they will not make sense for anybody in the industrial sector with these prices. So I hope I've answered your question. The company is very actively exploring many different options for power for better margins. Also, while looking for better options for reliable power more competitive prices, हम अपनी efficiency projects पे भी काम कर रहे हैं in terms of investment in our projects so that we can get the power consumption levels down. And this is a gradual process where we were in 2021. उससे हम incrementally better हो के we've come to us with investments. We have gotten better and better. We put in new membranes. We've made those investments so that our caustic membranes are better. Our gas turbines, power machines operate more efficiently, and we will continue to make those investments. Ahmad Owais,
जी सलाम वालेकुम।
वालेकुम अस्सलाम.
जी जैसे आपने अभी बताया कि पीवीसी की प्राइस जो है वो बेरिश रहेगी इंटरनेशनल मार्केट के अंदर, तो
ओवैस, आपकी आवाज मुझे नहीं आ रही. आप म्यूट हो गए.
अब सही आ रही है आवाज आपको?
जी अब आ रही है. जी अब आ रही
जी, तो जैसे आपने बताया था कि 500 रुपये गैस अब बढ़ने वाली और इंटरनेशनल मार्केट के अंदर पीवीसी की प्राइस जो है वो बेरिश ही रहेगी क्योंकि ओवर सप्लाइड है इस वक्त मार्केट। तो अगर हम आप अगर इसको कोल पे ट्रांसफर भी करते हैं तो आपका क्या पूरा कैप्टिव प्लांट चेंज होगा या सिर्फ बॉयलर चेंज होगा, और उसमें कितना टाइम लगेगा इसको, क्योंकि अगर इसी तरह से गैस पे चलाते रहे तो कंपनी तो पैसे नहीं बना पाएगी, उसको फिर नेक्स्ट क्वार्टर में मजीद जो है वो लॉस का ही सामना करना पड़ेगा, जो मैंने कैलकुलेशंस की हैं। जी थैंक यू।
तो ओएस, अगर मैं पहले आपको ये बता दूं कि यस, हम पीवीसी प्राइसेस को स्टेबल देख रहे हैं। बेरिश वुड बी अ लिटिल बिट ऑफ एन ओवर स्टेटमेंट एट दीज लेवल्स, बिकॉज ये हिस्टोरिक लो प्राइसेस हैं। इससे नीचे मैंने आप लोगों को बोला था कि अगर प्राइसेस गई तो ग्लोबली प्लांट्स बंद होने शुरू होंगे, ऑपरेटिंग रेट्स इसीलिए नीचे भी आ रहे हैं, बिकॉज एट अ सर्टेन लेवल इट डजंट मेक सेंस टू प्रोड्यूस। Where investments in power are concerned, so yes, coal makes sense at a certain price point, but at a certain price point, actually, gas abhi it doesn't make sense. Yes, but coal also makes sense. For example, at a certain point price point. So we are looking at those options. लेकिन वैस ये इस तरह नहीं हो सकता, so सिर्फ बॉयलर चेंज नहीं होता, कोल का पूरा पावर प्लांट में इन्वेस्टमेंट होगी। We take a lot of power. It's not just the boiler and steam and all of that. So the whole power plant, power option, it requires a lot of thought. It's an investment, and the company has to evaluate it. The board will evaluate which investment makes sense before we finalize our power strategy. But rest assured, power is front and center. One of our key priorities has been in the last 2 years and continues to be. The only thing that changes it is that the power sector and the power industry and the gas industry in Pakistan has been changing very rapidly also. So where 2021, 2022, the focus was that indigenous gas is going down and LNG is going up and WACOG is coming. To 2024 May, pricing has moved to LNG. Molecules are available for gas, but LNG molecules will be available if industry can use them efficiently. End of 2024, there is the key area that affects the industry is that the entire captive industry has to move, for example, to grid, where some are not connected to grid, or the grid is not reliable, or the grid is expensive. In 2025, 2 months later, is the pricing of the gas, which drives your power cost, which has increased by 500 rupees per MMBTU with a levy notified. So the bar is also shifting against which decisions have to be made, and these are big decisions for investment. The board of Agropolymers is evaluating all of these very carefully and very closely, monitoring the situation. We have a presence in Islamabad also, and we continue to actively monitor through PCMA, OICCI, BBC. The industry itself is very strongly monitoring the situation and coming up with its plans to combat it. I hope I answered your question. Now I'll move to Zubair. Zubair, if you can ask your question. Walaikum assalam.
A general comment before I come to the question itself. Looking back at your margins over the last few years, I see that the super commodity cycle, especially in post-COVID 21, 22, where you were doing margins in excess of 31, 30 odd range, maybe 28 above. So basically, these were where you were witnessing sky high prices of the end product, which is your PVC. And that in turn was influencing the delta that you were making on PVC for margin. So now, with the prices back to sub 1000 levels, 800 probably where you just highlighted it to be. Historically, these are all derivatives of oil, and with oil at $70, we've not seen the PVC prices go below $1,000 or $900. This is probably should be the first time where many producers, since they made money, they invested in capacities, and these capacities came online, and now there is a supply glut in the situation. Now, Ingro has some custom duties and others, obviously, which by virtue of it was selling the commodity at higher prices in the local market. But now with the gas price changes and with the changes in the feedstock prices, I think this competitive advantage that you had somewhat eroded. Now with you not planning any backward integration or mostly not any major forward integration. It sums and still deciding on what course to adopt for your future power needs. It seems as if the industry or the business is stuck into not a very good situation for the next 2 to 3 years. Your comments on that?
So on that, Zubair, so you're right that prices have been super low compared to, for example, in 2021, 2022, when we had the global commodity super cycle. And they've been gradually decreasing. But what has been different this year has been ethylene prices have remained very stable or slightly bearish in for us, matlab slightly trending upwards in the beginning of the year. So, core delta has been constricted. Other than that, our advantage was always based. If we are a commodity company, commodity may, if you go far enough back, Zubair, there will always be troughs and there will be peaks. The super cycle was extremely amazing post COVID, but generally, if you go back 25 years in agropolymers history only, the commodity cycle goes down and goes up, and you invest in the good years and you hold tight in the bad years, and sometimes the bad years are a year or two, sometimes they're 6 months. So it works both ways. In terms of where agropolymers is, we've had major investments already made. So we made, actually, you have to understand, no company will invest every year. We have just finished our investment in 2021 on the PVC 300 project. VCM was debottlenecked to 245 KT, 50 KT debottlenecking of the VCM plant. Post that, we have commissioned our OVR project, which was an efficiency project. And inshallah, this quarter, we plan to commission our final two projects from that strategy time, which are the HPO project and the HTTC project. The HTTC project is actually an efficiency project, which should bring efficiencies into our PNL. And this year, we do expect to see results from our efficiency projects, featuring a lot more front and center in our results. So competitive advantage comes from competitive operations in any commodity business, and you will see a lot more of that going forward. As far as the price of power or gas is concerned, yes, the price of power is an issue that affects all of Pakistan's industry significantly. So all industrial groups are campaigning for it, because the downstream industry cannot be competitive for exports if power is so expensive. And if we want to achieve the GDP growth targets that the government has set, exports and industry will drive it. And that requires power to be at a reasonable price. So that is something that the industry is trying to solve with the government. And on the side, agropolymers and other industrial players are looking at different options, like I said, to make their own power consumption more efficient, and also to look at other options for power generation or importing power. It's a multi-pronged strategy, and it's something that we are very, very heavily invested and focused on, along with the optimizations in all costs, in our cash outflows. Another thing, Zubair, that had happened in 2024, which already you can see is not happening in 2025, is 22% interest rates. When in Pakistan's history have we ever seen that? But Alhamdulillah, interest rates have come down in the fourth quarter, third quarter. It's currently at 12% and expected to reach single digits. And that should have an impact for all businesses. In a down cycle, you need more access to capital, yes, but the price of that capital has a direct hit. And this year, we don't anticipate the same need for capital also, or that cost of capital. If I were to ask Mohammed Owais.
जी, मुझे एक सवाल और पूछना था कि क्या ये पॉसिबिलिटी है कि हम ग्रिड से बिजली लें, और ये पॉसिबिलिटी है कि हम हाइड्रोजन के ऊपर ट्रांसफर करें अपनी इलेक्ट्रिसिटी के, कोल से भी बेहतर है वो, और वो बहुत चीप होगा अगर इस पे कंपनी इन्वेस्ट करती है तो।
तो वैसा इस पे the thing to note is कि एक second. इस पे the thing to note is कि hydrogen we are going to be using towards hydrogen peroxide. So it's a value-added product, and we are expecting it to diversify our revenue streams and really increase the value of the company. And that's the best use of hydrogen in agro polymers as we evaluate it right now. दूसरा आपका सवाल क्या था? Grid. तो grid से बिजली एक तो agro polymers is not connected to the grid right now. So we are in island mode, and that's how we operate. So grid also has to be much more reliable before we can before it can serve as an option for agropolymers. Because, like I said, we have a very sensitive process plant. Process plants cannot operate, with trippings or voltage fluctuations, and one tripping can set us back with 7 days of almost 7 days of production. So it's not something that can be done very lightly for process plants like us. We require very stable power along with reliable power at competitive pricing. The stability of that power supply is also very necessary. Thank you. Ji Heather sir.
Yes, I have a couple of questions further, but squeezed to 3 questions. Number one question, why did inventory levels increase and what steps to optimize inventory and reduce working capital? और इसमें ये रॉ मटेरियल साइड पे है या वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस या फिनिश गुड साइड पे है इन्वेंट्री लेवल? पहला क्वेश्चन.
So, Heather Saab, if I were to talk about inventory levels, sales, आपने देखा था, I showed the graph that while production was stable during the entire year, sales in the first half were very low. Then first quarter were very low, second quarter they were better, third quarter they were better, fourth quarter they were the best in 2024. So working capital did get stuck as our sales were lower in the first half of the year. And that was on the back of high imports coming in. But the situation has normalized a lot in the second half of the year. We closed the year at, I think, around 20 KT of inventory, PVC. And, that is something we look to maintain or tighten further. Raw material, maybe a plant this size requires a certain amount of inventory to run on a regular basis. We are not a batch plant. So we need ethylene and EDC, which are our two biggest inventories, raw materials for in inventory at all times at a certain level to make sure that plant operates at optimal levels, and efficiencies are maintained on the manufacturing side. But all of these are something that the management and the company looks at very closely in terms of how to manage, and it's very much in our radar. Last year also 2023 में बहुत सारी जो चीजें ऑर्डर हुई थी वो 2024 में जब आई, those also consumption, because if you recall 2023 में we faced a huge problem of import LCs not opening in the first half of the year. So certain items were delayed जो कि inventory वगैरह में pile up हुए in the first half of 2024 and then were used in consumed in during the course of the year. जी हैदर, आपका एक और
जी
सवाल है?
जी जी मेरे 2 सवाल हैं. सवाल तो
आप
बहुत सारे हैं लेकिन मैंने स्क्वीज किया है.
जी जी.
अच्छा, दूसरा सवाल मेरा ये था कि जो शॉर्ट टर्म बोरोइंग्स हमने बहुत ज़्यादा की है ना, तो इसकी अगर कोई डिटेल आप दे सकते हैं तो ये मतलब रनिंग बिजनेस के लिए है या कहीं और कैपेक्स वगैरह में कहाँ पे इस्तेमाल हो रहे हैं?
ओके, तो इसका शॉर्ट टर्म कैपिटल, हमारा वर्किंग कैपिटल हमने ज़्यादातर यूज़ किया है इन रनिंग बिजनेस. सो if revenues are down and core delta is also high, is also low, आपने देखा होगा कि COGS में हमारा काफी major dip आया है, and that COGS में जो dip आया है has to be financed from somewhere because there is a business operating with a certain requirement of cash. And projects were also underway, certain projects like the Zero Gap project and the others, उसमें भी funding use हुई है, सिर्फ short term नहीं long term भी use हुई है. So that is where the cash has been spent, primarily in inventory and and smaller projects, including material warehouse, etc. And over the course of the year, this has gone down, and we expected it to be at better levels than it was in 2024. ठीक है जी. जी हैदर.
जी ये मेरा लास्ट क्वेश्चन तो बहुत सारे हैं, लेकिन जाहिर सी बात है टाइम आपके पास कम होगी, तो लास्ट
जी.
क्वेश्चन में कर देता हूँ. इसमें ये कि हाउ डज द कंपनी प्लान है बैलेंस करने का री इन्वेस्टमेंट इन द बिजनेस और रिटर्निंग वैल्यू टू द शेयर होल्डर्स. लेट्स सपोज कि बाय बैक्स या एनी अदर स्ट्रेटेजी जिसके जरिए आप ये कर सकते हैं.
So here, that is something that is at the discretion of our board, and it takes into account a number of variables: business performance, need for cash. But this is at the discretion of the Agropolymers board, balancing, and obviously we exist to create shareholder value as a business. So thank you. No other questions as I see them, Aruba. So I think we'll take around questions for another 5 minutes on the chat window, and then we'll close down. Again, thank you everybody for your patience. I'm sorry we started late, and hopefully we won't have these technology troubles next time. Thank you.